The Aurelian Interstellar Academy floated in low orbit above the cerulean world of Virex 9, a vast ringed structure of silver spires and glowing corridors that reflected the light of two suns. It was the most prestigious military science academy in the known systems, a place where future commanders, engineers, tacticians, and diplomats were forged through relentless discipline. Humans were not meant to be here. At least, that was the unspoken belief shared by most of the non-human cadets who filled the academy halls. Tall Virexi with crystalline skin, broad-shouldered Car with molten gold eyes, and sleek, bioluminescent Lyrans who moved like shadows. Humans were newcomers to interstellar politics, their technology considered crude, their biology fragile. So when Alara Vance, a 16-year-old human girl from Earth's outer colonies, stepped through the academy gates in her plain gray cadet uniform, she was already marked. She felt it immediately. The stares, the murmurs translated through neural implants, the subtle shifts in posture that spoke of disdain. Alara kept her head down, gripping her datapad tightly as she followed the orientation path through Hall Sigma. She wasn't here because she was special. She was here because Earth needed representation. Alara had scored well enough in tactical simulations and zero-gravity engineering to earn a conditional placement. That alone made her a curiosity. A human girl, small compared to most cadets, with soft features and dark hair tied back in a practical knot.
Weak.
That was the word she overheard most. Her first weeks passed in silence. She trained harder than anyone else, stayed longer in the simulation chambers, and reviewed academy manuals late into the artificial night cycle. Bruises became routine. Exhaustion was constant. But she endured. Then came Kale Draven. Kale was a Virexi elite, taller than most, his crystalline skin etched with natural battle patterns that shimmered faintly when he moved. He was already a legend among first-year cadets, known for his combat prowess and ruthless efficiency. And he hated Alara. At first, it was subtle. Accidental collisions in corridors. Assigned seating that boxed her out of group discussions. Equipment mysteriously malfunctioning when she needed it most. Instructors noticed none of it, or pretended not to. The academy prized strength, adaptability, survival, and Alara was failing the unspoken test. Middle. The breaking point came during combat integration training, a required module where cadets of different species were forced into mixed squads to simulate real battlefield diversity. Alara was assigned to Kale's unit. The moment their squad assembled in the combat arena, a massive chamber filled with holographic terrain and adaptive gravity fields, Alara felt the air shift. Kale's gaze locked onto her like a predator spotting wounded prey. "Human," he said flatly through the comlink. "Try not to slow us down." Alara swallowed and nodded. Understood. The simulation began. At first, she performed well, mapping enemy movements, calling out flanking routes, compensating for her weaker strength with quick thinking. But Kale ignored her input, overriding her commands and forcing the squad into aggressive maneuvers. The result was chaos. One by one, squad members were eliminated from the simulation until only Alara and Kale remained, cornered in a ruined structure as simulated enemies closed in. "This is your fault," Kale snarled, advancing toward her instead of the enemy markers. "You don't belong here." "This isn't part of the exercise," Alara said, backing away. "We need to regroup." Kale deactivated his safety limiter. The arena alarms should have triggered instantly. They didn't. Kale struck her hard enough to send her crashing into a wall. Pain exploded across her ribs as her breath left her in a sharp gasp. She tried to crawl away, reaching for her sidearm, but Kale kicked it out of reach. "Pathetic," he said. "Your species hides behind rules and instructors. Out here, you'd be dead." Alara's vision blurred. She could hear the simulation continuing around them, explosions, shouted commands from other arenas, but none of it mattered. She was alone. Kale lifted her by the front of her uniform and slammed her to the ground again. Her neural implant screamed warnings as her vitals spiked. She tried to fight back, swinging blindly, striking where she knew Virexi joints were weakest, but Kale barely reacted. Each retaliatory blow felt like hitting solid crystal. Blood pooled beneath her, dark against the white training floor. Finally, the arena doors burst open. "Instructor on deck," someone shouted. Instructor the Los Ren, a towering car veteran, stormed into the arena, his voice echoing with authority. "Cease combat immediately." Kale stepped back, breathing heavily, his crystalline patterns flaring with adrenaline. Alara didn't move. The Los rushed to her side, kneeling as medical drones descended from the ceiling. His expression, usually unreadable, tightened. She was unconscious, and her vitals were critical. Ending. Alara woke up 3 days later in the Academy medical wing. The room was quiet, bathed in soft blue light. Her body felt heavy, wrapped in regeneration bands that hummed gently against her skin. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was or why everything hurt. Then it came back. The arena.
Kale.
The impact. She turned her head slowly and saw Instructor the Los standing near the window, his massive arms folded behind his back. When he noticed her eyes open, he stepped forward. "You're awake," he said. Alara tried to speak, but her throat was dry. A medical drone adjusted her hydration levels automatically. "What happened?" she finally asked. The Los hesitated. "Cadet Draven has been suspended pending investigation," he said carefully. "Your injuries were severe. Another few minutes, and we might not have stabilized you." Alara stared at the ceiling. "You came too late." It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. Thalos's jaw tightened. "Yes." There was a long silence between them. "Why didn't the alarms trigger?" Alara asked. "Someone disabled them," the Los admitted. "We believe it was intentional." Alara closed her eyes. She was weak. That part was true. But weakness wasn't what nearly killed her. Neglect did. Over the following weeks, word of the incident spread through the academy. Some cadets whispered in sympathy. Others argued that Alara should have known better, that the academy was no place for humans. But something had changed. Instructors became more present. Safety systems were audited. Mixed species training protocols were rewritten. Too late for Alara. She returned to training eventually, moving slower, flinching at sudden movements. Kale never returned to the academy. Officially expelled, his name quietly erased from honors records. Yet the damage lingered. One evening, Alara stood alone in the observation deck, watching the stars drift past. The Los joined her, standing beside her in silence. "You could request a transfer," he said. "No one would fault you." Alara shook her head. "If I leave, nothing changes." She turned to face him, her expression steady despite the scars, visible and unseen. "I survived," she continued. "That means something." The Los studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "It does." Years later, Alara Vance would graduate from the Aurelian Interstellar Academy, not at the top of her class, not as the strongest or fastest, but as something rarer. A reminder that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the cost of learning that truth was paid far too late.